And now it's time for the real news. And now, here's Ferry.
Hello and welcome to the Real News. If you are new to our broadcast, we discuss current events and politics, the war, the loss of our liberties, etc. It is a forum for you, the listener, to call in and get involved in the discussion. Today, our guest is going to be John Vishon with Americans for Immigration Control, who will be joining us shortly. And after that, we will go to the phones with your phone calls. The Real News crew will be at WDSL Studios for the WDSL and Moby's Cruise-In starting at 1 p.m. today. Come by, bring the kids, check out the cars, meet the Real News crew, Brian, Ty, Jim, myself. We will have some free DVDs and flyers to hand out, and always ready to debate the Constitution or our current state of freedom in America. If you take I-40 to the Tanglewood exit, take a right. It's approximately 1 mile on your right. You'll see the new WDSL sign, and the cruise-in is taking place behind that. It's 1 to 7 today. Last week's broadcast about autism got a lot of people talking. Good bit of email came in, and I want to thank Brian on behalf of several listeners for setting up that guest here on the Real News, and also thanks to everyone that emailed or called and got involved in the last week. It's been a very busy week in the news. Wildfires in California, oil prices still climbing, gas over $4 a gallon. But I want to start with the Senate bows to Bush and approves his surveillance bill. Bowing to Bush's demands, the Senate approved the White House bill Wednesday to overhaul bitterly disputed rules on secret government eavesdropping and shield telecommunication companies from lawsuits. Complaints that help the U.S. spy on Americans. The relatively one-sided vote, 69 to 28, came only after a lengthy and heated debate that pitted privacy and civil liberty concerns against the desire to prevent terrorist attacks. It ended almost a year of wrangling in the Democratic-led Congress over surveillance rules and the president's warrantless wiretap program that was initiated after the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks. The House passed the same bill last month, and Bush said he would sign it soon. Opponents assailed the eavesdropping program, asserting that it imperiled citizens' rights of privacy from government intrusion. But Bush said the legislation protected those rights as well as American security. This bill will help our intelligence professionals learn who the terrorists are talking to, what they're saying, and what they're planning, he said in a brief White House appearance after the Senate vote. The bill is very much a political compromise brought about by a deadline. Wiretapping laws authorized last year will begin to expire in August without a new bill. The government would go back to the old visa rules requiring multiple new orders and potential delays to get these intercepts. That is something most of Congress did not want to see happen in an election year. The long fight on Capitol Hill centered on the main question, whether to protect from lawsuits any telecommunication companies that help the government eavesdropping on American phone and computer lines without the permission or knowledge of a secret court created by the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. The White House had threatened to veto the bill unless it immunized companies such as AT&T, Verizon, against wiretapping lawsuits. 46 lawsuits now stand to be dismissed because of the new law, according to the American Civil Liberties Union. All are pending before a single U.S. district court, but the fight has not ended. Civil rights groups are already preparing lawsuits challenging the bill's constitutionality. And 4 lawsuits filed against government officials will not be dismissed. Numerous lawmakers have spoken out strongly against the no-warrant eavesdropping on Americans, but the Senate voted its approval after rejecting amendments that would water down, delay, or strip away the immunity provisions. The lawsuits center on allegations that the White House circumvented U.S. law around the Visa Court, which was created 30 years ago to prevent the government's abusing its surveillance powers for political purpose, as was done in Vietnam Watergate eras. The court is meant to approve all wiretaps placed inside the U.S. intelligence gathering purposes. The law has been interpreted to include international records stored on servers inside the U.S. The president broke the law, declared Senator Russell Feingold. The Bush administration brought the wiretapping back under the FISA court after the New York Times revealed the existence of a secret program. A handful of members of Congress knew about the program from top-secret briefings, most still forbidden to know the details of the classified effort, and some objected they were being asked to grant immunity to the telecoms without first knowing what they did illegally. Pennsylvania Republican Senator Otto Inspector compared the Senate vote to buying a pig in a poke. This is a perfect example of the government, both parties, Democrat and Republican, decimating our Fourth Amendment rights. In the name of protecting us from the terrorists, we must forfeit our liberties for security. Who said if you give up your liberty for security, you deserve neither liberty nor security? Remember after 9/11, the 200 supposed terror cells the government said existed in America to fan the flames of fear in the U.S. citizens? What happened to them? Did they just decide to sit back forever and ultimately collect Social Security? Or has our government used 9/11 to strip us of our God-given rights, our constitutional rights, and destroy our freedom in the name of fighting this invisible enemy that is so dangerous we must, as America, hand over to the government our civil liberties? But our southern border is wide open. Don't be fooled. Resist any loss of your rights to fight the so-called terrorists. Terrorism is a type of warfare, not the name of an army. The government can now conveniently name anyone at home or abroad a terrorist for about any reason they conjure up. Shame on both parties. America and our Constitution was once again trashed, and I, for one, will call it for what it is. Shameful. We're going to go to Brian, and after that, we're going to come back with a break and go to our guest.
As our nation continues to plummet over the precipitous and proverbial slippery slope of economic, moral, intellectual, and spiritual decline, I so often find myself pondering a puzzling lack of outrage among the population. What fuels this apathy, this willful ignorance, I ask, in the face of such deep wounds draining this country's lifeblood from a once robust, prosperous, and conscious society? Why have we become a nation of extras from dawn of the dead? Why have so many turned a blind eye as our dollar is being turned into toilet paper, as the Federal Reserve Bank bleeds our nation dry, as we launch one unconstitutional preemptive war after another, as millions of illegals flood our system and the borders left unsecured, as our government methodically erodes our civil liberties and subverts our Constitution, as our nation's food supply is being patented and monopolized by Monsanto? Is it a fate similar to what the Romans were to suffer, a decadent empire dependent on conquest for sustainability while the population were to grow bloated and lethargic, drunken by many years of assumed affluence, growing ever sloppier until finally collapsing under the weight of their ignorance and arrogance? As Americans race around in their SUVs, spending themselves silly, burying themselves into debt slavery, working jobs they can't stand to buy things that they don't need, their apathy is also fueled by a corporate pimped-out media that reports the latest celebrity rehab fiasco, or the water-skiing squirrel, the sham election, skating over the real issues, and of course bombarding us with a plethora of advertisements depicting how easily we can buy happiness with the swipe of a card. Consumerism replacing God as a means of spiritual fulfillment. But beware, speaking out against the cult of materialism will result in charges of blasphemy and being unpatriotic. I've also heard the excuses for non-involvement for lack of concern or understanding of our nation's condition. From "it doesn't concern me" to, well, nothing I can do about it, or "it's all the Republicans' fault, Obama will fix everything." Or even the "stop being so negative and look at the positive side." All of these answers, of course, enrage and sicken me to no end. To such ludicrous indifferences I reply, yes, it does in fact concern you. Your country is morally and financially bankrupt, crumbling around you, and you are feeling it, yet too sorry to do anything about it. There is also plenty you can do. Armed with a camcorder and the ambition to make a difference, a 19-year-old Luke Rudowski would inspire thousands to stand up, ask questions, and hold our leadership accountable, certainly not accepting that he couldn't make a difference, as many would falsely have him believe. And yes, the Republicans did sell us up a river, but the Democrats are no better, both parties being sellouts. And if Obama truly were to represent we the people, you can rest assured the powers that be will not tolerate such treason and reprimand him appropriately. But in all likelihood, of course, he will simply continue to represent elite society and continue their agenda to decimate the lower classes and march toward a world government. As far as being positive goes, I'm very